Before we officially conclude today, we want to thank each of you for joining us for Youth Summit. Give yourselves a round of applause for the hard work you did today. To those of you who are excited for next steps and inspired by our guest speakers and topics today, our mock trial event will happen on January 11th, 2025, and our legislative weekend will be from April 4th to April 5th, 2025. At this time, I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing our Youth Summit speaker who will be providing us with some welcoming remarks. Among her many achievements, our guest speaker has recently pushed for millions of dollars in converting vacant offices into residential buildings, expanding green spaces, upgrading libraries, and creating affordable housing. In 2025, she has allocated $2.2 billion to the modernization of 33 DC schools, $255 million in facilities upgrades, such as repairing roofs and replacing HVAC systems in preparation for the future. She has held elected office since 2004, having served as an advisory neighborhood commissioner, member of the DC Council, and now mayor. Please welcome Mayor Muriel Bowser to the podium.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, guys. I'm so pleased to welcome you. We call this room the Old Council Chambers, and we are in the Marion S. Berry building, which is one of our large office buildings. And I know that you have spent today learning about public policy and bill writing and fair elections and voter registration and more. So you have had a fun-filled day. And I can assure you that all of your sessions have been focused on the things that would have you have a great career in public service. So I know that all of you here today know the importance of being an active citizen. And together, we have a lot of power to make really great things happen for our city and for our country. And that is whether you choose to be in elected office like I have. Some of you may choose a path of being an appointed official or working for a local government or for the federal government. You may help by working for a nonprofit or a think tank. So there are a lot of things that you can do to help leaders make good decisions about our tax dollars, our public policy, and how we run our governments. And so, of course, we are at a very important time in our nation. We're only 11 days away from an important election. Any of you 18 years old? Any 18-year-olds? You're close to 18-year-olds, right? Okay, in the district, before the primary, if you're going to be 18 by election day, you can register to vote. So already start thinking about the next 4 years or the local elections that you want to participate in. And we have spent the last week or so reminding DC residents about all of the convenient ways that they can vote. We mail a ballot to every registered voter, and they've had that ballot for the last 3 weeks, and they can put them in the mail, they can drop them in a ballot box, or take them to a voting center. And on Monday, we start in-person early voting. And the last day of voting is November 5th. So I am honored to share with you just a couple of words about my journey becoming mayor of my hometown. As you heard from the introduction, I have been in public service almost 20 years. And my first elected position was a position that we have here in D.C. Where are you guys from? All from D.C. Okay, so you know about ANC commissions. It's a volunteer position in D.C. government created by the Home Rule Act, where those elected serve their neighbors, 2,000 neighbors, and make recommendations to the mayor and council. So I had the privilege of being an ANC commissioner in my neighborhood in Riggs Park. I also served on the council of the District of Columbia for Ward 4 for almost 8 years. And now I have the privilege of being mayor. And on January 2nd, I will celebrate 10 years as mayor. Thank you. So my journey is maybe not unlike some of yours. When I went off to college, and you're starting to think, I know, about what colleges you will go to, what you will study, and how you want to spend your lives working. Some of you have it all figured out. Like, you know exactly what you want to do. I was not one of those kids. I did not have it all figured out. I knew what I was good at. I knew what I enjoyed, and I knew what I was passionate about. And I've always been passionate about civics and government and writing and persuading. And that is the path that I took. I studied history in college. I got a master's degree in public policy. And I got a job working in local government, and that's where I really fell in love. I knew that I didn't really want to be in the federal government, but local government, where decisions are made and programs are implemented in neighborhoods that I could touch and feel, was what excited me about government. And then I realized, having volunteered on a campaign, that I really love campaigning. I really love going out and talking to neighbors, understanding what changes they want to make. And in our city, we're different, right? We're city, county, state all at once. Not really a state, not quite a state, so we don't have representation in the Congress, which we have to change, which I'm counting on all of you to work with us to change. But it also means that the mayor of the district functions as a county executive. The mayor of the district functions as a governor. And we work with 13 members of the council to create a budget and implement our laws. We have tax and spend authority. So we're not like any city in America and not like any state in America, because we also have city functions like picking up the trash. And so because we have this unique status, we really can take something from idea to implementation in a very short time. I'll give you one example. When I was still on the council, my last year on the council in 2014, the chancellor of schools, who at the time was Kaya Henderson, came to me and said, you know, we are really focused on attendance. And more to the point, we're focused on changing the trajectory of our truancy numbers. More kids have to be at school. We're doing all these great things in school, but too many kids are missing school. And she looked at me and she said, can we just do something about getting them there, the transportation? Because for some families who were leaving their neighborhood to go to a different school, they were paying $30 per child on Metro. $30. And if you had, you can do the math, families with more than one kid could be spending $100 a month getting their kids to school. So at that moment, I said, and this was probably in the spring of that year, let's change that. And I created the Kids Ride Free program. It started off on Metro Bus, and then we expanded it to Metro Rail when I became mayor. But Kids Ride Free is the district pays, you get your card, and you don't now have to pay to get back and forth to school or your other activities. And that is something, an idea that I had in the spring. I got it funded in the next budget cycle, and Metro implemented it that fall in time for kids to go back to school. That is something that you could never do with a state legislature, but it is something that a mayor and 13 council members can do for the betterment of our youngest residents, but also to expand the middle class. And so that has been a hallmark of my term. I started off with a pledge to bring back confidence in government. In my second term, we focused on how we provide more D.C. residents a fair shot. And in this term, I knew it was important that D.C. had a leader who could bring us back from the pandemic, and that has been our focus. I want to say just a couple of words about D.C.'s journey in public school investment. I grew up in D.C., like many of you, but I grew up at a time when people in the government was not investing in the public education system. And in fact, my parents, who had 5 kids, I'm the last one, thought that our neighborhood school wasn't good for us. And so they made the difficult decision and a lot of personal sacrifice to send us to different schools. Fast forward to 2007, when the district made the decision that the mayor and council should be accountable for our schools. And we started a regime known as, people call it mayoral control, but I call it mayoral accountability. So students and families know that the mayor and council are responsible for the budget and the decisions necessary to turn our schools around. And since we've embarked on that in bold investment in schools, we put billions of dollars to change school buildings. We've invested in transformative contracts with our employees, most especially our teachers, who are the best trained and prepared teachers in our region, and I think in our nation. And we have seen our enrollment and graduation rates go up accordingly. And we're very proud of that. We're proud that we have a system that has free pre-K3 that goes all the way up to our law school at the University of the District of Columbia. Now our focus is how we change high school. We want high school to have something for our young people who are on an academic path all the way through college and beyond. We want to have high school that serves our kids who are focused on the arts. We want to have high school that is focused on tech, but we also want to have high school that is focused on what we call advanced technical careers. So we've created advanced technical centers where young people will not only go to school, but also go to work and get the critical skills even before they graduate that will help them land a good paying job that will allow them to have a great life right here in Washington, D.C. And so that continues to be a great part of our focus, because that is what has allowed us to transform our city. I call it the Renaissance of Washington that started back in 2007, where we saw our population grow, our school enrollment grow, and it's directly tied to our schools' investments and our investments in public safety. And so we intend to keep that going. So as a budding group of leaders and legislators, you have a big task ahead. Your task continues to be, and in some cases you may have a harder task because our politics are more divided. People are more separated into their camps, the red camp or the blue camp. In local government, we just don't have the time for that type of division, because delivering services every day and being accountable to your residents every day means you just by definition are more practical about how you get things done. So as you think about your future career in politics, I challenge you to figure out ways to talk to your fellow citizens that is absent going to your corners and talking about policies, values, and the humanity that is within all of us. And if you are so called to serve, know that it's going to take a lot of courage to stand up to people who find it easier to be in those corners, and use what you've learned, rely on your values, develop a big vision, and then run for office or go work in the government. And so that's what we expect from all of you. So with that, good luck. Good luck with your studying. I don't know if maybe we have time for a couple questions. Anybody have any questions? Yes. I'm kind of old enough not to answer that question, but let me put it this way. I was 34 years old when I got elected for the first, to the council, and now, God's blessed me with 52 years. Yes.
Talking about making like specialized schools for specialized careers. Is there any chance of implementing like some of those classes already in school?
That's a great question. So his question was, can we implement specialized classes in existing schools? And I think the answer is yes. We have some courses focused, for example, on hospitality and cosmetology in some of our existing schools. And the advanced technical centers largely have a focus on the healthcare sciences and IT. But we are exploring schools that have some excess space to see if they could become like that advanced technical center. So the idea could be that you go to school A, but over here that has a focus on IT, and maybe you take some classes in the afternoon there or in the morning, and then you go over to school B in the other part of the day and take something related to health sciences. So that is certainly within the realm of possibility. Behind me. Thank you.
Hi. I was wondering what your thoughts are on implementing a ranked choice voting system in DC.
Sure. I don't like it, and I'm going to tell you why. I don't know what it fixes. So it would implement, in my opinion, a lot of confusion. And I think that type of confusion actually drives down voter participation. And I'm not sure what it fixes. So I think in the history of initiatives, things that get put on the ballot in DC, I don't know that there's ever been one that has failed. So this one might pass, and the council would have to grapple with how to fund it and implement it. Yep. Sure. The question was, what's my plan to include more AP and IB classes? Every year, the chancellor looks at our offerings, and we're always interested in making sure that we have the full spectrum of offerings. And so I actually would have to ask him if there is an immediate plan to increase the number of offerings that we have. But that's a good question, and we're always looking at ways to make sure that we have our kids are being stretched in every way. 1, 2. Yes. Yes, in the front. When it helps, say any plans for Ward 7 and 8 that Well, that's a great question. So the great question was, what more plans do we have for Ward 7 and 8, particularly around after-school activities or events like this? And we have, and I've been proud to say that, and I made it a point when I became mayor that my investments in Ward 8 in particular would be very intentional. And that we would be able to look back and say that we've done more for Ward 8 than any other administration. And I can say with confidence that I'll be able to say that. We looked at particularly the St. Elizabeth's campus to make huge investments. So almost $1 billion has been invested there. We'll have new housing, a new hospital, and more jobs, a library, and better connection to the metro, which is hugely important. We're also, I think we have funded and will implement 5 new recreation centers in Ward 8. But don't let us off with that, because it's one thing to build a building, but to your point, we have to make sure that the programming there is connecting our youth, our young people, and bringing them in so that they're getting good experiences and exposure. Now, I don't think, however, that every program that we have has to be ward specific. So when we come to downtown DC and programs like these are programs for all 8 wards. And so we have to make it so that families know how to connect to great experiences no matter where they're happening in our city. But that's a great question. Yes.
All right. So, first question: Are you from DC?
Yes.
Okay. And then second question: what is the DC government or you as mayor doing for or against gentrification in the city as a whole and the displacement of low-income minorities?
Well, the thing that I'm doing specifically is, why'd you ask me if I was from DC? Let me ask you that.
I mean, I'm just from DC too. My pop's from DC.
Okay. Okay. So let me say this. Gentrification is a loaded word. So I don't know what you mean by it. But generally what people mean is that should we invest in new things? And if we invest in new things, does that mean that the old people or old things get pushed out? And our challenge is to continue to invest in those things that are new and improvements, but bring everybody along to enjoy them. And we have done so with different development projects, some intentionally and good, and some not so good. So there are a lot of lessons that we've learned by making investments that then drive prices up, let me put it that way, drive prices up to the extent that legacy neighbors and neighborhoods can't afford them. And so I think one of our biggest lessons learned is when we made the investment along the H Street corridor with the streetcar. We saw prices skyrocket in ways that neighbors couldn't afford. Does that mean we shouldn't have done the investment of the streetcar? I don't think so. But it does mean that we should have been more intentional about making sure that we were investing in affordable housing along the corridor and that we were preparing residents to be ready for those opportunities. So we did some things differently when we made investments in Ward 8, for example, at the St. Elizabeth's campus that I just mentioned. So we knew the dollars were coming and they needed to come because what we heard from residents is, I have to leave my neighborhood to go to the grocery or to go get something to eat or to have new housing to select from. So we know we need the investment. So part of what we did, we started homeowners programs, and we started them before the development started so that Ward 8 neighbors were going through the process to be ready to make a home buying decision when those opportunities came available. So that's one example. Other examples are creating more programs related to property taxes for seniors, for example. So we have programs that limit the amount of increase that any senior property owner can experience, which helps when property values go up in neighborhoods because of new development. So those are some ideas. Okay, I'll take a couple more. 1, 2 on this side, and 1, 2 on this side.
So I wanted to ask you about educational equity because my aunt's a teacher and she teaches specifically in Southeast schools, and she has seen how the environment has affected them. And she often goes broke sometimes because she has to buy supplies for her kids. Sometimes she buys clothes for them, food for them. And so I just wanted, what did you think about giving equal opportunities to specifically Southeast kids?
Well, I think that the schools are one place where it is equal, right? Because every child is funded at the exact same amount, every child. Where we see differences sometimes is that schools are bigger or smaller. And so a school that's bigger has more resources than a school that's smaller. So some things that we have to do to further equalize our investment is right size the size of our schools. So that's one thing. Second thing, I never like to hear teachers say that they have to buy supplies because we invest a lot of dollars in schools. We even give teachers a little card. This year, I think half the teachers got a card, others got Amazon accounts where they can buy a certain amount of supplies. Here's the thing that's sometimes different in our schools, depending on where it is. For example, in my daughter's school, I get a list every year of supplies that families provide. It costs me about $100 to get everything on that list for the year. And so when we have in my school, for me, it's not a problem. For other families to come up with $100 and they may have more kids, that is going to be an issue at the start of school. So I do think there have been some private and nonprofit supports that help us figure out how we can support teachers in that way so that they have all the supplies that they need. And that we have the nonprofit support that supports kids. So what you're talking about is not school inequality, it's inequality of children who may be living in poverty and whose families need more support. And so we have so many programs to help families work towards higher paying jobs. We have a lot of programs to help families get in safe and affordable housing. And one thing that we have found, if they can have stable, safe housing, families can take care of the rest. And so we have been, the young man asked me before what we've done for affordable housing. We have made more affordable housing investments than any city in America in the last 10 years, and that's why we've created 36,000 new units. So there's more to do to make sure that families are supported. And part of our comeback plan is how we raise the median household income for Black families in the district. And that focus is on jobs, job creation, and making sure that we're attracting sustainable jobs to the district. There was another hand back here.
What are traits and skills that you value in young leaders, or traits and skills that have helped you in your role as the DC mayor?
Thank you. I love that. I think the number one trait is critical thinking, and it's a lost trait because to be a critical thinker, you have to read. You have to read a lot from a lot of different vantage points. You have to write well. Have to write well. And I don't know how you guys are practicing at school now. If you have to do essays, like I had to do essays, and you had to, have all of the parts of a good paragraph and an argument, you have to do that at school? Okay, that's important. That's going to serve you well. You have to be able to speak well and present yourself well. How many of you all are a little shy about public speaking? Little shy? Okay, I am too. I'm a little shy, but I practiced for a lot of years, so now I'm not as shy. But you have to be, and public speaking could go from everywhere, standing up like I'm standing up now. You could be in a board conversation. You could be across the desk from your boss asking for a raise. Those are all examples of how you need to be and speak persuasively. So critical thinking, writing well, speaking well. And when I say speaking well, that means how can you persuade others to your point of view? And I think those are solidly the best skills. And you have to act with integrity. Okay, I had two more on this side. Oh, she came over here. Okay.
Hi, my name is Tori, and my question is, are you considering adding more career pathway courses in high schools due to it being pretty limited to health science and cybersecurity, stuff like that?
Yes. So let me tell, do you know why we have those career paths? Tell me why.
I am at ATC, which is the dual enrollment
Okay.
with Trinity, and I'm doing general nursing.
Okay.
And I think it is because it's important. Like it's an important career or job to have.
Yes.
Due to it, like it's not a lot. They're going like I heard that it's a shortage. And
Bing. There you go. That's it.
doctors and nurses, stuff like that.
So this is why we have identified those career paths, young lady, because there are jobs that are going unfilled that pay well. So remember how I started, that the point of ATC was to help our students get good jobs that have a sustaining wage so that they can live right here in DC. So we are creating programs to help you be trained to walk out of high school into one of those jobs. So what we're not doing is training you for a job that doesn't exist or won't pay you enough to live here. So yes, we will expand as our data show us we need jobs to be filled and that they pay well. That's the point. You got the point. Yes.
What are some of the measures you are implementing to ensure the safe and peaceful transfer of power after this year's election, given the events of January 6th?
That's a great question. So we are always 100% of the days of the year preparing for a safe city. And part of that preparation is for First Amendment activity. And so we continue to work with our federal partners on that preparation. But it is also important to mention that we expect Americans to want a safe transfer of power. And so for those people who come with the expectation of violence, law enforcement will deal with them. And that's important. But what none of us wants is a civil war in our country. Our police department doesn't deal with civil wars. Okay? So you follow what I'm saying? And so we want everybody at the highest levels of government who are on the campaign trail to clearly communicate the values of our country. And the number one among the hallmarks of our republic and a democracy is that it's not a king, it's not a dictator, it's a person who serves a term. And when that term is up, the people have spoken, you transfer it to the next person. So we approach our work in that spirit, and we hope that every American does. All right. I think that was my last one. Maybe I'll get these two quick questions. Yes. What's your question here, dear? All DC public schools, middle school and up, have metal detectors. Some of the public charter schools do not, and that's a decision that those school communities have made. One of the biggest to-do items that we have and related to hardening our schools is classroom doors. And we have a capital, it's like a budget term, a capital plan to replace and secure all of our doors over time. Last question. Yes, thank you.
I'm a sophomore. What are your plans to improve the quality of school food for our graduates?
The quality of school food? Tell me about that. Say more. Where do you go to school, first of all? Okay. Say more about school food.
I think that school food, like, the quality has good, and I see that a lot of students rather like skip or like bring their own food. There's a lot of food that's like this.
It's being wasted. What would be the one thing you suggest that I change? Okay, that's a good suggestion. And your question, like, it hits the nail on the head. We pay a lot of money for food. And do you know how heartsick I am when I go to a school and I see the trash cans full of the food? And then, you know what else I see? I see the young people going to like a snack cart on the street and getting orange soda. It breaks my heart. Or in the morning, even worse, stopping, getting orange soda. So we are always trying to make it better. And I think that the chancellor does a survey every year to see how we're doing. Let me check in with him. We have a meeting every Monday to see what's happening in schools, and I'm going to give that feedback. Thank you, YMCA. You have one last one? Say again? Yeah.
And they're trying to make it healthy, but I think a way to reduce waste would be stopping people from, or to not make them get stuff that they don't want. Like, for example, I don't drink milk at all, and I'm also lactose intolerant, so I wouldn't want to get the milk, but we're forced to get like the milk and like a fruit and all this other stuff, but sometimes like I don't eat the fruit, and it would just all end up going to waste.
Okay. So why you don't eat the fruit?
It's just like, I don't eat stuff like bananas.
Okay, I don't either. Okay, but you would take an apple.
Yeah, I would eat like apples and peaches.
Okay.
Like, I don't eat bananas.
Okay, all right. And they just make you take a.
Yeah, we have to get it.
Okay, all right, that's good. Is this more food talk? Okay. Go ahead, sir.
And a lot of the school food is not necessarily the highest of quality. Because I used to know someone who went to my school before she transferred. One time she got food poisoning from some of the food that was there.
Okay.
And I've heard that experience from another few people, which is alarming.
Okay.
And like at my school, personally, it's getting better, but I also just want that to be like at the forefront, maybe increasing quality standards.
Okay.
For the food.
All right, I think that's what the first question was about, quality as well. Okay. All right, this is the last one. Okay. Yes, sir.
What are your plans or like any reforms you're going to do about violence just in general?
Yes, so we're seeing our crime trends in the right direction and in a big way. Last year, this time, if you asked me the same question, I would have been extremely alarmed because all of the things across the city that we were implementing, we were still seeing a number of gun violent and gun-related crime, including carjacking. And we saw a lot of young people involved. Now we've seen a 30% reduction since where we were at this time last year, more than 50% reduction in carjacking, which has a palpable feeling of improved safety across the city. So that's important. But having said all of that, we still have too many young people who are engaging in crime. And so we have in our schools and along school routes, I'll talk about that in particular, we have something called a Safe Passage program. And that is meant to have adults who are known in the community and known to the school along routes close to transportation to keep young people safe or to and from school, which is a vulnerable period of time. I think a way that we might expand that program is to actually have those credible adults, credible messengers in more schools. Because a lot of the times, some beefs or violence that happen out in neighborhoods started at school. And I need you guys to help me too, right? You know what I've seen too much of? Videos of people fighting. Is that funny? No. Like we didn't, when I was, adults back me up, we didn't have that when we were in high school. It may have been something else, but it wasn't phone videos circulating after school of something that happened in school. So let me just say this. When you're in school and there's a a scuffle, people call it a school fight. When you're outside of school and that same scuffle happens, you know what people call it? Assault. And then they call the police. And then you're engaged in a system you don't want to be a part of. So this is part of our strategy to keep neighborhoods safe, is to make sure that young people are safe at school. And you can be leaders. You can be leaders. So you see somebody getting picked on, you see bullying, you see fights, don't make yourself a part of it. And like work with the adults in your school to make sure you have a safe school culture where every young person is supported. So I know that's a lot to ask, but that's your job in school. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Adults